funding. We are looking at the moment, we're hoping to announce soon, but a 10-year funding deal with a major private company for the Darebin Creek, which includes areas along the Banyule side of the creek as well.
Thank you very much. Thank you to all the speakers this evening. There's an officer report before you set out on the agenda papers. Do I have a councillor moved? Councillor McKern? Do I have a seconder? Seconded, Councillor Castaldo. Councillor McKern?
Thank you, Mayor, and I'd like to thank all the speakers who did raise salient points. Particularly the first speaker, I think that focus on the future is absolutely vital to think of. We can't just plan our open space for today. We have to be thinking of future growth. We've just had a discussion about the number of dwellings that are going to be increased across this municipality. We've prepared a strategy for 57,000 new dwellings. Where's the commensurate open space infrastructure? We need to look after what we have. A third of that growth will be in the Belfield, Ivanhoe and Heidelberg areas, as mentioned by our first speaker. We already have a situation in Ivanhoe where 21% of our housing stock is apartments, and that will continue to increase. Where is the commensurate open space? Hearing that residents from half the municipality are using the parklands already is an incredible statistic, and one I think that all our councillors need to note. What we're being asked today to extend the funding commitment to DCMC for an additional year to June 2026, I think is very reasonable. And I think too that it covers that gap of what would otherwise be quite an unstable time of no service provision potentially. And what are the services that we would actually be missing out on? To name a few: bushland management of what is 34 hectares of urban bushland. That's no mean feat in a middle ring suburb to manage. Grass mowing, rubbish and dog waste management. People use that park to run their dogs from not just the local area, it's a regional asset. There's a lot of dog poo to pick up. Tree risk assessment and management. There are thousands of eucalyptus trees in that parkland. We're heading into a fire risk season. Who's going to be managing the fire risk of those trees without having staff and services there? Education programs, including the popular Bush Kinder program used by at least 6 local kinders, and not to mention the volunteer programs. I'm told that volunteers contributed over 3,000 hours of time valued at about 130,000 last year alone. We need our volunteers, and we certainly need to keep this service up while we're undertaking a review. And I'm not saying we shouldn't be doing a review. There are efficiencies potentially to be made, as pointed out by one of the speakers, but let's not throw the baby out with the bathwater, and hopefully let's support this motion. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor McKern. Does the seconder wish to speak?
First, I'd like to acknowledge all speakers that spoke tonight on this, and the emails we've received and the phone calls and everything else over time. Councillors have a couple of opportunities to visit the Darebin Creek area in the coming week, and I'll be going out twice with different people to review it. I've done a number of self-guided tours, and it is a very precious and unique and special place, not because there were resources put on it, but because there was love that went into that place, and you know it when you go in there. And it's probably one of the places, the most hidden special little features, a combination of what people have done and what nature does. When they work together, you can make very special places, and I'm supportive of extending this interim process. I love what's going on down there, and I'd like to continue to see that same connection with the local residents and the community with that space into the future. And I'm not sure how best that is done right now, I'll admit that, but I'm really appreciative of all the work that's gone in the last 30 odd years down there.
Thank you, Councillor Castaldo. Councillor Grotti.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. So when this came to council last year with the proposal to defund, I was very proud to have led the alternative recommendation to keep it funded and to keep it going and to give that certainty back to the staff, to the volunteers, to the management. Really pleased that we were able to do that as a council. And I think as well, very pleased that we were able to clean up some of the governance elements as well now, which seem to be playing out well for DCMC. So I think that's a good pat on the back for what we did as a council. Very excited to hear the executive manager talk about the fact that now up to 40% of income is coming from non-council sources, including state and a potential private. Keep that work up, because what it's showing is that as a committee, you've run with that opportunity that was given to say, okay, we've got a window of opportunity now to continue to demonstrate our value and to build on that. And I think any time that you can show that you're leveraging a council dollar and turning that into 2 with state and philanthropic and potentially 3 with volunteer time, I think that would hold you in exceptionally good stead. And I don't want to presuppose any decision of council, of course, but I think that is the right way to be going as a committee. So keep up the good work, and certainly from what I'm seeing and hearing tonight, in good hands from a management perspective. And I would say keep going ahead. And we applaud the work you're doing, and we continue to wish you well.
Thank you, Councillor Grotti. Councillor O'Kane.
Thank you, Mayor. First, I'd like to endorse everything that Councillor Grotti has just said. I think that is a really good foundation to address many aspects, I think, that sometimes are talked about. I'd just like to mention again that first meeting that the issue came up in October last year was actually my first meeting time I came to a council meeting, and I can remember standing at that door glaring at every single one of you, so I apologise for that, because I've been deeply invested in this since I was a kid, with parents coming and being part of that early development. I support the extension of this MOU with the Darebin Creek Management Committee, which I believe play an essential role in driving the rejuvenation of the Darebin Creek environment and the parklands through their integrated creek-centric and community collaborative approach in all their activities. The DCMC's emergence 50 years ago out of small community initiatives by local residents into an independent organisation that is networked and project connected and recognised as a leading model in this space extends not only across Melbourne but statewide and nationally, and it's something I think Banyule should be very deeply proud of, and I think also protective of going into the future. I think stability is very necessary, financial stability is very necessary, and even core funding to enable you to leverage that to get even more funding is very necessary for your strategic thinking and planning and implementation. But in saying that, I think what I'm trying to grapple with is the treatment of the development of the creek, the state-centric environment of the creek, and how it's split by, I finished in a minute, this constructed political border across it which divvies up responsibility in ways that do not fit into this singular, well, it's not a singular environment, but a creek-centric environment. But I'm looking forward for looking into innovative solutions to this dilemma. I hope to explore the options by learning deeply as possible into all aspects, including the financial aspects that Kevan Hill talked about, the risk aspects and the community ownership aspects. But for me, as Councillor Castaldo said, it is essentially a place with heart. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor O'Kane. Councillor Curry.
Thanks, Mayor. Thanks to the speakers that came tonight. It really is a passion project for you, and it's we really do appreciate as a council that you do put your heart into it. And I was down there last week with a couple of council officers who walked me around the site, and I hadn't been there before, so I'm very appreciative of the space and I'm learning more, and I would also like a further review with interested residents, the friends groups and the DCMC. I would love to be taken down there and get some more perspective on this. I also recognise that Council has an obligation here to review its service to the area, and so I think it's certainly relevant that we have this review that comes through, and I'm looking forward to the report that comes back to Council. And I do agree with previous comments that it sounds like you would be naturally a forerunner of that process, given there's a lot of grants that are also taken in by the DCMC, which allows you to operate in a way that we might not see from other providers or other service providers. So I too am very supportive of ensuring that we have stability in the space until we have that review coming back to Council, and I look forward to that, and I'm sure that you will come back with passion again, and I'll see you there. Thanks.
Thank you, Councillor Curry. Councillor Wood.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor, and thanks to all the speakers. I continue to learn a lot about this. This has been one item that I've had to work hard at to get my head around in a few weeks, and I thank Director Bennett and Michael Tanner particularly for the work they've done with us. It is a critical asset down at Darebin Creek, and just to pick up one comment that was made about it being a continuance, I've asked a lot of deep questions about this, and I can assure you it's not just a continuance. The officers are working really hard to support the committee in their work, and I'm satisfied that the officers have got a process in tow to make sure that there's a good collaboration with the funding, working with the committee to go forward. So in terms of being asked to continue the funding to allow that review and a rigorous review, I'll be supporting. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Champion.
Thanks, Mayor. Just very briefly, I'm on a bit of a journey as well. This really came to my vision back in October last year. So I actually went for a walk through there yesterday afternoon by myself. It was a lovely day for a walk, and I noticed how the park was used, how it was utilised by such a variety of people, and I also noticed there wasn't a piece of rubbish in sight. It was immaculate. It was an immaculate public open space. It was absolutely brilliant. Not a shopping trolley. There were no pieces of rubbish, nothing non-organic. It was fantastic. So I've got a clearer understanding of this space, this area. I've got a visual, and I'm using that to just be on this journey and get a greater understanding along with how the committee works, as well as what the future of it is. So thank you all very much for speaking. Thank you for bringing this to our attention, and looking forward to working with you in the future on the next steps. Thanks, Mayor.
Thank you. Does any other councillor wish to speak? I agree with my fellow councillors on this item. They've covered it very well, so without repeating what they've said. The extension of the MOU is important. I'd like to thank all the stakeholders involved, and thanks to them for demonstrating that the parklands, the creek, are a highly valued asset for both local and regional communities. I put the motion to the vote. All those in favour? Carried. The next item is 5.2, the State of the Environment Report, 2023 to 24. There are 4 speakers on this item. Melissa Murphy-Webster will address Council in person and is speaking for the recommendation. Thank you, Melissa.
Thank you, Mayor.
2 minutes.
Okay, so the report has a lot of great information on biodiversity and urban forestry as areas for good health and livability. Banyul's passion for nature and sustainability is heartening. However, There is many concerns under the heading climate change that I can't cover in 2 minutes, so I'll just focus on the claimed emissions reduction. Firstly, let's not forget for a moment that plant life, which we love in Banyule, needs carbon as an absolute necessity, and humans are carbon-based life form. In the net zero race, carbon has been made out to be the main enemy, and this makes up 0.04% of the atmosphere. Humans then contribute 3% of that 0.04. Nature, including volcanoes and ocean degassing, control the remaining 97%. So if we were concerned about the CO2, then there's a much greater natural challenge. Of that, Australia is calculated to contribute in just over 1% of the 3% of the 0.04%. Victoria contributes 17% of the 1% of the 3% of the 0.04%. And I couldn't get any further breaking down information. Most of the information that we get is done in emission gigabytes or gigatons, not percentages, which is reflective in a different view. Where most of the manufacturing for renewable products is done, China is calculated as around a third of the global human emissions. I worry we keep greenwashing components of renewable energy. We cannot pat ourselves on the back claiming that we are reducing emissions when we calculate solely based on operational emissions and not life cycles as confirmed by the CEO office in September. I was pleased when, as Mayor, Councillor Castaldo refused to take part in the credit carbon scam. However, what is the difference when we pretend that mining finite minerals, using green power, manufacturing PVs, turbines and batteries are carbon neutral? Pretending that there's no emissions or destruction of nature for production during manufacturing, logics and end of life. Nearly done. Why do we ignore the emissions and they are just being displaced to China? When can we expect to get a true cost to the environment of these projects in macro sense? Thank you.
Thank you, Melissa. Is there a question? Yep. Councillor Grotti.
There is a question, and just picking up on a point from the Speaker, but to the relevant officers. Our corporate greenhouse gas emissions, we're measuring at the Scope 1 and 2 level. Just seeking feedback on when we expect to extend that to Scope 3, which would include the entire procurement supply chain of the Council through the appropriate officers.
Director Swan.
Thank you, and through you, Mayor, I think I would need to take that question on notice in order to answer it accurately.
Thank you. Michelle Jovis will address Council in person and is speaking for the recommendation. Thank you, Michelle.
Thank you, Mayor. I had intended to speak in favour of publishing and disseminating this important report, but I am now speaking against it as I have reservations about the lack of transparency and the seemingly arbitrary way a leading indicator of biodiversity has been presented. A major area of concern is how the bird count, how the citizen science bird count has been presented. In the last State of the Environment report, there were tables indicating actual bird numbers. However, in this report, the bird counts are presented as a percentage of an unknown total and not the actual number. So the question is, percentage of what? Providing percentage bird data in this way is neither transparent or helpful and actually hides from the community the savage decline in bird numbers that some areas of Banyule are experiencing, for example in Watsonia and sections of McLeod and Heidelberg. And as the author points out, this report suffers from having key council strategies held over, key important environmental strategies held over. Key to those is the biodiversity strategy and the climate change strategy, which we all know Council understands is real and needs to be tackled. And I think if Council had the opportunity to pass these important strategies in the last Council, they would have informed the targets of this State of the Environment report. Also missing are the tree canopy counts. I think we need to be looking at air and water quality data. However, the report does have great points in it. We do have success stories such as the Gardens for Wildlife program and the Crefts Glider Box program, and importantly, the inclusion of the total CO2 emissions, and the CO2 equivalent greenhouse gas emissions for the municipality as a whole, so that we can see overall trends in carbon dioxide emissions. And I would urge Council to further review and update this report before it is disseminated and published. Thank you.
Thank you. Michelle. Our next speaker is Kevin Hill from Banyule Ratepayers Association Group, and he will address Council in person.
Thank you, Mayor. I'd like to invite all the label makers to get ready to put a label on me. I'm speaking against this simply because in the section under climate change, the opening statement is not logical and it's very poorly prepared in terms of rhetorical structure. It says the Earth's climate is always changing due to the greenhouse effect. That's not the only reason. Scientific evidence demonstrates with little doubt, I'm sorry, there is doubt, particularly the burning of fossil fuels. Now look, I'm not a climate denialist, but I am a scientist, trained and experienced. And I say that the opening section of this report creates a bias that flows all the way through. I congratulate the people who put the report together. It's really well built, but it's built on a false premise. So I'm not saying that climate change is not driven by activity of humans. I'm sure they contribute to it. But to make your argument based on that opening paragraph is nonsense. That's all I want to say. Thank you.
Thank you, Kevin. Our next speaker is Pippa Griffith, and she will address Council in person. Thank you, Pippa.
Thanks again. I'm supporting the motion, and in particular the second part about future changes to the report. I look forward to future reports including much more robust data and also more highlighting of the progressive and innovative leadership mentioned in the strategic objective. I was really disappointed that the only thing that I could find that was obviously innovative was with respect to the electric fire truck. More robust data is definitely needed. I wanted to know more about a number of things through the report. For example, one of the biodiversity indicators is that over 8,000 species were planted in bushland reserves. That's on page 103 of the attachment. Does that mean 8,000 plants or 8,000 different species and therefore an even greater number of plants? And what percentage of those plantings survived? The same goes for the number of trees planted in the public realm. How many of these survived to 5 or 10 years? There's no information about these or analysis of whether things need to be done differently to improve survival rates. We've already had some extended dry periods this season, and new plants need more watering in such circumstances. And improved survival rates would, of course, be better value for money. Another example is the amount of litter collected from the gross pollutant traps, which was under target. How is the target set and what is it meant to achieve? And what measures are being taken to prevent litter getting into the waterways in the first place? Staying with the waterways, why is a wetlands desilting program required? What is causing silting up? And is the need for desilting changing over time? Is it a natural process or is it increasing because of increased runoff and erosion? There are many other things I could say about it, but it's also great to read the success stories, the Gardens for Wildlife, the Crefts gliders, the number of volunteer hours, etc. And I'll finish with that. I had the thrill of seeing a blue-banded bee at my place this morning, and that really made my day. Thank you.
Thank you, Pippa. I just wanted to just see if someone could clarify the plant. 8,000 plants. Is that plants or species?
And through you, Mayor, thanks for the question. I'll need to take that on notice to get an accurate answer. Thank you.
Councillor Grotti has a question.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. Just a question. As I understand it, one of the critical elements of council being able to achieve the corporate emissions reduction by 2028 is electrification of the pools. And just seeking an update through our Chief Executive Officer or Mayor on where things are at with the federal government and their promised grants toward those upgrades happening. Thank you.
Through you, Mayor, we're still waiting for the outcome of those funding applications. So the federal government has not made any announcements to date of who has been successful. So we consider that we're still in the running and hoping for announcements soon. Indications were originally given that we would be notified in September. We keep following up and the dates keep getting pushed out.
Thank you. Councillor McKern.
Thank you, Mayor. Just adding to the question asked by Councillor Grotti with respect to electrification of pools being one of the big ticket items affecting our corporate reduction emissions, which otherwise we're on track to achieve net zero carbon emissions by 2028, which is our goal. However, there's another factor there which could disrupt that target, and that is conversion of heavy fleet. So I'm just wondering if the Director of City Development or Assets and City Services, depending on who wants to take the question, might speak to conversion of heavy fleet to electric, just where we're at, where other councils are at, and how might it affect our ability to reach net zero carbon emissions by 2028 if we can't make the conversion.
Thanks for your question, Councillor McKernan, through you, Mayor. At the moment, whenever council does specify for heavy fleet, we always ask for alternative energy sources such as hydrogen or electric. At the moment, we haven't had any success in that, and it depends on what sort of heavy fleet you're looking at. There is some trialling of some smaller rear-loaded trucks which we're trialling, and that's sort of around the lower 810 trucks, so we're having some success in that. But the bigger trucks, as I said, that alternative drivetrain, the technology just isn't there at the moment when you're talking about our 13-tonne trucks with a payload of another 10 tonne on it. That's a 23-tonne vehicle. The technology there with the drivetrain just doesn't exist at the moment, but we always ask the question when we go to the market.
Thank you, Director Bennett. Another question, Councillor Castaldo.
While we're asking tough questions for the relevant officer, Councillor McKern alluded to it, 2028 we say that we should be at zero emissions, and Council has stipulated that there is not to be offsets purchased to deliver on our strategy. Could the relevant officer please provide me with advice whether we have solutions to get to that target, or how have officers determined we're going to be at zero in the future projections at 2028?
Director Swan.
Thank you for the question, and through you, Mayor. At the moment, no, we're lacking solutions, particularly in the two areas that we just mentioned, so electrification of our major pool facilities and our large fleet. Part of the consideration for us going forward is what is the other alternatives and options, and as we're preparing more of the updates to our corporate emissions reduction plan, our climate change adaptation framework and community climate action plan, will be investigating what other options might be available to us.
Just seeking further clarification that we've indicated to our community that we will reach zero emissions. We've indicated to their community we would not be buying offsets. Is there any other information that can give them confidence that we will get to zero emissions by 2028?
Through you, Mayor, as we just explained, there's two areas where we still don't have an industrial solution. for those fleets. So, no, I couldn't give you any additional information.
Okay, another question, Councillor Curry.
Thanks, Mayor. Through the appropriate officer, and I think that might be Director Bennett, I'm looking at the comparisons year on year, and particularly in relation to waste. And when I look at the comparison between landfill waste and organic, in the 2022 year compared with the 2023 year, we saw a reduction from landfill, which was explained as an increase in organic waste. But the difference that we're seeing between the 2023 and the 2024 year seems to show that we have an increase of about 46 kilos over the two categories, which I don't think can be explained with FOGO anymore. So I'm just wondering if there is an answer as to why we're seeing that increase, please.
Good observation, Councillor Curry, and through you, Mayor. I'd need to take that on notice so I can ensure I get the specifics of that question right and be able to answer that confidently.
I was just pausing for any more questions. There is a motion. I seek a councillor to move a motion. Councillor Garotti.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. I think there might be an amended motion.
Thank you. Could you take us through?
Yep, so that point one, that council note the State of the Environment Report 2023-24 and authorise its publication and dissemination to the community. 2 is seeking an opportunity for a workshop with councillors early in 2025 to establish the new KPIs and reporting data set for the 24-25 period. 3, as is, but after community consultation, including the introduction of relevant urban food indicators, as well as the measurement of food relief and participation in council programs, including and not limited to Indicator 21, the measurement of food relief in response to demand, and Indicator 22, measuring awareness and participation in council's urban food programs. And point 4, note that the KPIs established for the 2024-25 reporting period will be considered by council at a future council meeting. Thank you, Mayor.
Do I have a seconder? Seconded, Councillor McKern. Councillor Garotti.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. I really thank all of the speakers on the item, and I also thank fellow colleagues just for the range of questions that we asked of officers. And I think that's demonstrated that there are a range of queries and questions around the State of Environment report in Banyule, and indeed the state of where we're actually at as a council. I think there's a number of follow-up item, a number of times I heard officers say we'll have to take that on notice, we'll need to follow up. So that's why, in a sense, we've done what we're proposing to do this evening, which is to note the report rather than endorse. But we're still going to put it out to the public and disseminate it to the community. But clearly there is a bit of work to be done, and we've had a really robust conversation as a group of councillors and with the executive management team around that and looking for that follow-up. Certainly for me, one thing I'm very passionate about seeing is those Scope 3 emissions, because our supply chain, while we're going through this electrification process and we're getting Scope 1 and 2 down, where are we importing the solar panels from? Where are we importing the electric vehicles from? Where are we importing the electric fleet from? How much emissions has gone into all of those elements? That's part of our supply chain. That's part of our corporate emissions. So let's be honest about that. Let's be honest about Scope 1, 2 and 3 and come clean to the community about actually where we're at. And if we're not going to achieve things by 2028, and I think this speaks to Councillor Castaldo's point, let's be honest about it. We're still doing a lot of great work. We're still going through the transition. Everything that we've done so far as well has had a very positive financial return for this council. So we've been ticking financial as well as environmental. But I think in essence here what we're saying is that this State of the Environment report has to be, it's not a sales document. It is not a brochure that should be going out there saying, look how good we are, look at all the amazing things we're doing, let's give ourselves a big pat on the back. It's a document that's meant to hold us to account, to you as the community, around where we are on this transition and journey. And so I think through this amendment, we're saying that work needs to be done, transparency needs to be lifted, and we want to do that because we're serious about this as a council, but it comes with honesty, it comes with integrity and having the right reporting. So very pleased with where we're heading as a council, but I think it's important that, you know, we're not here to sell ourselves. I think it's important that we're here to work with the community to be honest about where we're at and the tangible actions we need to take in the future to keep doing, keep getting on the right path. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Garotti. Does the second to Councillor McKern?
Thank you, Mayor. And I want to say primarily that we ask a lot of the State of Environment report. We really do, and we produce it on an annual basis, and you'd be interested to know that it's essentially one person working on it. It reports on biodiversity, urban forest, water, climate change, waste, ESD, and now urban food, although we are questioning whether urban food should be in the State of Environment report. At this point, it's got nowhere else to go, so this is its home. But there will be a review of how we produce this report and whether or not we should be producing every single indicator for all, the metrics for all the categories that we cover off on every year. As I said, it is produced by essentially one person from the environment team, the coordinator Damien Harrison, and a shout out to him. He is one of the most passionate officers and knowledgeable officers on environment that I have ever met, and I think we're very lucky to have him at Banyule. And therefore, I think too, we need to respect that. A great job is actually being done by the officers given their limited resources in reporting on these metrics, and we need to find ways of making it more relevant. So perhaps we don't need to report every year where the needle on a particular element is only shifting slightly. We need to be a lot more, I think, we just need to be more careful about how we report. I did include these two metrics on urban food because we did adopt our first urban food strategy last year, and I think it was important to bring them into the mix in terms of how we are reporting on food relief, which is one of the reasons we produced the urban forest strategy and the urban food strategy in the first place, because of the concern around food insecurity, which was really brought home during the COVID years, and also measuring awareness and participation on council's urban food programs, including our community gardens. How are they performing? Who are they attracting? Do we have enough of them around the city? Where else can we be including them? What other programs can we introduce to help people connect more with each other through food? And just quickly before I finish, there was a comment made earlier by the first speaker about climate change. Whilst the drop in emission levels was one of the highlights of the report, I just want people to know that we do base our evidence and what we report on what the IPCC has reported at a global level. The Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change is the global leading scientific body of that assesses climate change. And according to the IPCC, it is human activity that is the main reason for global warming. Therefore, we do have a responsibility to change our activity, which we will continue to do. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor McKern. Councillor Castaldo.
Just how does someone measure the ecosystem richness, or what elements are most important in such a subjective matter? I think tonight we've had a number of people voice their views on what's important and what makes a successful movement in our environment. These are really hard, and while the State of the Environment is a good read and highlights what's important to our community for a good environment and shows a range of things going on, I have great concern with what we have identified as a success or a report on the state of our environment. And you can see from the amendment up there just the significant amount of work councillors have put in to trying to make sure we get this right. When I look at a document, I'm looking to know if we are taking the most strategic action and have confidence in what we're taking those actions, that maximising impact and to deliver value to our community and greater world and ecosystem. I would like to see where solutions are in place to deliver on our targets and impediments are noted where we currently don't have the solutions, but we have aspirations. And I think it's important that we're clear with our community that some things haven't been fully resolved. We've got to be honest with our community, how we're working, what we're doing. And I think I had over 20 concerns with this report, and it's really troubling. I didn't want this report going out to our community because I don't believe this is a demonstration or a summary of our environment. But I think with the amendments, the conversations we had out the back with fellow councillors, some of our officers now have a good idea that we're really serious to be honest with our community. And so I'm comfortable with the recommendation we came and landed on in the end, collectively working on that. And I will be rigorously working with officers and councillors to make sure that we can communicate with you honestly and sincerely show you what our plan is and tell you what's going on. So I will support this in the end.
Thank you, Councillor Castaldo. Does any other councillor wish to speak? I put the motion to a vote. All those in favour? The motion is carried. Item 6.1, our well-built city, Banyul's feedback on stage 1 of the Balbardia Social Affordable Housing Project. I just wanted to mention quickly, as a council, we have a job to do to transact the business, and sometimes speakers are speaking over the 2 minutes, and if I can feel that they're passionate and well prepared, that I'll allow that to happen. But if we could try and stick to the time, I'd prefer that. Our next speaker is Pippa Griffith, who I've allowed to speak for tonight on a third item. Pippa is speaking against the recommendation.
Thank you. I was really pleased to see this on the agenda, as it really is time something is built on the Balbardia site. Today's news about increased numbers of homeless people, including a significant proportion of people in employment, and recent projections that the situation is going to worsen even more, emphasises how urgent this is. I have some issues with some of the details in the plans, which I've written to councillors about, but basically there's a lot of good stuff in there, and also in Banyul's submission in response to those plans. So I'm speaking against this motion only because I feel the submission should be strengthened along the following lines. Firstly, there should be more disabled accommodation. Some of this should be in the affordable section of the development. People with disabilities face even more challenges than most because of needing particular kinds of access, and starting with a blank slate, as this proposal does, provides an opportunity to make more of the apartments accessible. Secondly, at a time when we know that Banyul has an oversupply of one-bedroom apartments, the number in this proposal should be seriously reconsidered, as it is currently more than half the total number. And thirdly, the state government has an opportunity to make significant inroads into the shortage of public housing in this state, with the remainder of the Balbardia redevelopment, and council's submission should be emphasising the need for more social dwellings when those plans are being drawn up. So please amend the submission accordingly, and you will have my support. And I'm under 2 minutes. Under 2 minutes.
Thank you, Pippa. Jai Sanford will address council in person and speaking against the the recommendation. Thank you. Jai, you have 2 minutes.
Thank you. I'll try and stick to it. So the state and federal Labor governments have significantly over budgeted this item by about $3 or $5 million, which is weird for housing. They normally underfund it, but bureaucracy may take hold and they may blow out even more. So probably need a public developer for public homes. But the government is here funding social and affordable homes which are segregated into 2 separate buildings, which is pretty bad in and of itself. These houses need to be mixed into the community and not just in one place. These homes are expected to be probably privately operated by community and affordable housing providers. Despite being fully publicly funded, the government is essentially handing over these homes to bureaucratic and private organisations to manage and provide housing at rates that are not truly affordable, contrary to the name. So I have 2 questions for you all to consider. Number one, given that it was previously public housing, why isn't Banyule actively opposing the state Labor government's privatisation agenda? I understand that they will not listen, and it's essentially like shouting into a pillow, but we probably should keep standing against it, especially since it was public housing to begin with. And secondly, if it is going to be privately owned, Banyule may as well take an initiative. Will Banyule take initiative to become a community housing provider and facilitate housing for its citizens at genuinely affordable rates on an at-cost basis? This would be a groundbreaking state-leading initiative by Banyule if we actually decided to pursue this, and could even potentially be a well-needed income stream as well. Thanks.
Thank you, Jai. Okay, councillors, there's an officer report before you as set out in the agenda papers. I'm now calling for a motion. Moved, Councillor O'Kane. Is there an amendment? Could you please take us through the amendment, Councillor?
Sorry. Okay, so the motion reads that Council endorses Council's submission to Homes Victoria regarding Stage 1 of Belbardia Social and Affordable Housing project in Heidelberg West, contained in Attachment 1 of this report, subject to the following amendments. A, the provision of internal community spaces in both Building A and B to accommodate community meetings, community support services and activities, resident gatherings and other general purposes. B, the provision of an adequate number of dwellings to be designed to meet full accessibility and disability needs in both buildings on the ground floor. C, the provision of more diversity in the apartment types to provide for dwellings suitable for larger families with more than 3 bedrooms in total. And D, the provision of increased front setbacks to Bell Street to accommodate a row of large canopy trees along the frontage of the building. Number 2 remains the same. Number 3 requests that Housing Victoria provide detailed timeframes of their expected delivery, including the specific number of social, affordable and private dwellings, noting that the total site is expected to accommodate 460 dwellings overall. And last, number 4, undertakes further advocacy to the Minister of Housing to provide an uplift in the number of social and affordable dwellings across the Banyule municipality. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor. Do I have a seconder? Seconded, Councillor McKern. Do you wish to speak, Councillor O'Kane?
Thank you, Mayor. Through you, Mayor. I welcome the state government's housing. I welcome the state government's Housing Victoria overseeing the construction of social and affordable housing in Phase 1 of the Belbardia site. And I commend the Banyule Council officers for the technical thoroughness of the prepared submission. When door knocking in Olympia for my campaign, I was heartbroken by the number of people packing their homes up because they're either being sold to developers or the rent was being raised by $75 to $100 per week. Most fell through the gap between social housing, which they did not qualify for, or the unaffordability of affordable housing. We desperately need housing, but we need housing that provides safe and empowering spaces and that do not compound or push problems into our public spaces or contribute to ongoing transience because of the pressures on these spaces. I am keen that the Belbardia capitalises on the wonderful lessons learned in some of the social and affordable housing situations in Olympia and not repeat others. And to that end, I have recommended or asked for these amendments. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor O'Kane. Does the seconder wish to speak? Councillor McKern.
Thank you, Mayor, and thank you to Councillor O'Kane for some of these significant amendments. I'm interested in speaking to the open space provision, which I think is absolutely vital in this area. You'll notice the frontage setback. We're advocating for an increased frontage setback to what's being proposed from Bell Street. So currently, the frontage setback actually allows for what looks like in the conceptual landscape design we've been given, a row of small trees. We think, given that Bell Street is a primary arterial road, that setback of the proposed housing development should be a lot bigger and allow for a spine of large canopy trees to interface Bell Street. What I am excited about, though, is the provision generally of open space, including a community garden, vegetable garden, and I think that another thing to advocate for would be further open space provision in the additional stages which will arise. Overall, I think this is timely. We've waited a long time for that site to be developed, and I think a lot of thought has gone into the design process, particularly the landscape design process. So quite excited and very much welcome the amendments that have been proposed by Councillor O'Kane this evening.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Grotti.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. And look, I'll be supporting the motion. And thank you to Councillor O'Kane just for being across this in enormous detail and being able to guide and advise us as a council. So thank you for that. Appreciate your leadership on the local issue. Probably just wanted to pick up on something that one of the speakers said, Jai, that resonated with me actually around where the council needs to step in directly and how it may step in. Because we're at crisis level now. We're at absolute crisis level now in terms of homelessness within this community. And one thing that I've been contemplating, and I may do, is that in every general business item, I wanted to raise a location in Banyule that I know people are now sleeping rough and homeless. Because I just feel it gets swept under the carpet and we hear about a story here and there and we move on from it and nothing gets done. And we all continue to go home, you know. The garages that we park our cars in, including, you know, our Volvo electric cars, are better accommodation than what a lot of people in our community are experiencing tonight. So those comments resonated with me. As a council, though, we need to be financially sustainable. So we can't step into an area unless we know we can make it financially viable. But I'm interested in having a conversation with people like Jai and with others around what we can do, because we are at crisis level now, and just doing things like this and making amendments and advocacy to state, that's not going to get people into homes in our community who need them right now. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Grotti. Councillor Curry.
Thanks, Mayor. I've been at that lectern advocating for this site for some time. I might have stood up and spoken about it about 3 or 4 times. I think that this site should produce a little more than what is being planned here at the moment. I think we want to see an uplift on the site. I would suggest that probably 105 was probably a more realistic number, given that there was 94 walk-ups of social housing and they're only planning for 53 social housing. It's a very large site. There is planned 460 dwellings. I think they can ask for a little bit more, but the amendment as it's coming through after discussion is to say that really it needs to be a broader look across the municipality and without highlighting exactly where the existing are, but have a broad view on where we can implement more social housing. There's a number of sites that are state-owned that are ideal for this purpose, and I'd like to see that advocacy to the Minister for Housing to provide that uplift of number of social housing and some specific numbers around it. What can we expect and when can we expect it? So I'm looking for a little bit more on this site. I really welcome these amendments brought by Councillor O'Kane. I'm fully supportive of this going through. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Curry. Does any other councillor wish to speak? Councillor Castaldo.
Yeah, this is an important site, possibly the largest public piece of land that has the opportunity for significant housing across both affordable and social and any other categories that help provide that variety of housing that's absolutely essential. And as Councillor Garotti noted, we are in a crisis now. We need to take action. We were just down in launch housing development that council was involved with. And I was very proud to be part of a council that contributed to the housing supply of people that are most vulnerable in our area just this last week, where they had common areas and services on site to be able to support the residents and our social housing to create a good environment for those in the dwellings and also for the neighbourhood around them. And this is a development that's going to be much, much larger, significant in size, and there's no on-site services to be provided at this point in time. So some of the recommendations up there go some way to be able to do that, but we've got to have more assurance that the rest of this site's going to start to deliver some additional services that is absolutely essential for people that need assistance. And right now, I've never seen so many homeless people in multiple areas, across different areas in Banyule. I know I've got a number in different pockets in my ward, and I hear other people coming to us every day talking about homelessness. So I'm supportive of this action. State and federal government have really let us down. They've increased the population of this country but haven't kept in line spending in public government housing. So I think we're going to have to increase the advocacy level that we do when we meet with ministers in both levels of government going forward. And I will be guaranteeing you when I do have those opportunities, I will be raising that with them, because we've got a small budget compared to the many billions of dollars that they both have every year, and they've spent on roads and more roads and more roads.
Thank you, Councillor. Does any other councillor wish to speak? Well, thank you to my fellow councillors for their comments on this. I am hopeful this is working towards mitigating stress for low-income households. I know it's not perfect. I know that councillors have made their points. Councillor McKern, improving landscaping options and that social connection. Councillor Curry wanting more housing, as a lot of us do. But I do think this is the step to providing that, and it's going to be in Banyule, which is good for Banyule. So I put the motion to a vote. All those in favour? The motion is carried. There are no notices of motion. We move straight to general business. A few councillors have items. I'll go last. Deputy Mayor, Councillor Castaldo, you have an item.
No, not yet. Pass it.
Not yet.
I've just got to check the diary.
Yep. Go straight to Councillor Champion. You have 2 items.
Thanks, Mayor. I do have 2 items. Around 5 years, it was 5 years ago, 5 years ago on the 29th of November, one of our 18-year-old residents, Charlie Scott, took his life. At his funeral, there was standing room only. The mourners spilled out of the doors and filled the car park in Eltham. Over the loudspeakers, I heard how much love this community had for this young man, and I struggled to understand why he made the tragic decision to take his own life. And I learnt that he was shy. He was just a shy person. He was very reserved, and that made him a little bit different from others in his cohort, and he wasn't really understood. He was a bit distant. Charlie's father, John, was highly impacted by this. It's taken him 5 years to have the courage to create an event, the Montmorency Cricket Club's inaugural Charlie's Day was held a couple of weeks ago, and it was held to highlight the importance of inclusion for all participants in sport clubs and other areas, and specifically that every participant is responsible for creating an inclusive environment, especially the leaders within the clubs and the organisations, such as coaches or team managers, such as captains, such as presidents, leadership teams. We are all responsible for this. So on this particular evening, last Saturday, Charlie's Day, the Montmorency Clubhouse was full of supporters, included obviously myself, as well as the member for Eltham, Vicky Ward. Philosophies have been created at the Montmorency Cricket Club. They include zero tolerance for bullying, and your sporting ability does not define you. The other event, which is actually a happier event, Yarra Plenty Regional Library. The 70th birthday of the Yarra Plenty Regional Mobile Library was celebrated last week, and 70 years of service to the communities through Banyule, Whittlesea and Nillumbik. So this service was actually established in 1954 for residents to provide residents for easy access to library products, which at the time just included books, but now includes DVDs, videos, audiobooks, magazines, free Wi-Fi and computers. So over the 70 years, this has been increasingly needed and expanded service, not just for avid readers who are remote from their local library, but also for residents who can access their favourite music or their favourite podcasts, favourite websites for free. I attended the event, which was held at the Olympic Shopping Centre with the Yarra Plenty CEO, the staff, the management, as well as a lot of appreciative residents, including very young children who loved jumping up and down the stairs to the big library, parents and older citizens. And obviously there was birthday cake as well. Thanks, Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Champion. The next councillor with 2 items is Councillor McKern.
Thank you, Mayor. My 2 items relate to Climate Emergency Australia and Christmas lunch. Firstly, Climate Emergency Australia is a network of Australian councils who have declared an emergency. There are 5 board members representing various councils around the country, and Banyule is actually on the board, and I'm very privileged to have that role. We've been meeting regularly, particularly of late, to create a training program and also to discuss how we will advocate for more councils to declare a climate emergency around the country. Currently there are about 100 councils. So CEA has actually developed a training course for senior leaders in local government, And the aim is to strengthen Council's emergency response. Information about that is available on the CEA website. It's a really good website, just developed last year for those who want to know more about Climate Emergency Australia, how it operates and what it's achieved. Christmas lunch. I believe we have something to put up on the notice board in relation to Christmas lunch. On December the 25th, if indeed you're alone and don't wish to be alone, wish to be sharing Christmas lunch with other locals, Exodus, Bansick and Banyule Council have come together. This is the 4th year in a row that we're hosting Christmas lunch, and it will be held at Belfield Community Hub. I'll be there with my family helping to serve Christmas lunch, and we welcome as many people as possible to join us. If you look at the screen, there's some information there about bookings, which is absolutely essential because we're only catering for a certain number, but it is free, and if you'd like to know more about it, please contact either the phone number that's listed on this ad, Shop 48, is the other place where you can register. I'll be putting something on my Facebook page, but I believe also Councillor O'Kane will be joining us for a short while, so it'll be nice to have the two councillors there promoting a Christmas lunch for all our community. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor McKern. Next items from Councillor O'Kane. You have 2 items.
Thank you, Mayor. Yes, I do. On Wednesday, the 4th of December, the Banyule Community Health Centre AGM was formed into the formal public announcement of the merger of Banyule Community Health Centre and Mary Health into a new organisation, and it's a huge deal for them, and I think both our communities. So both orgs bring both innovative and effective programs and healthy financial positions to this merger. With the merger becomes an invigorated and experienced leadership team with the principle of community and individual empowerment at the core of everything they do. This was evidenced by the presentations at the AGM, not by key leaders of programs or the coordinators, but by the participants of Mary and BCHC programs who communicated the forceful power of empowerment-driven social services. It was a really fabulous AGM. I'm not always, they're not always the most engaging, but this was it was very full of life and dynamic. It was a fabulous. And congratulations to the new organisation who are still forming their name, so they're still kind of dancing around that. Second, on Thursday, the 3rd, I attended the West Heidelberg Key Partners meeting with organisations that provide social services in Olympia. At that meeting, a new research report was presented by the We Love Stories team at the Banyule Community Health Centre. This is a high-quality research project. It's an academic-level research project that explores through deep listening to local community people and providers the factors that shape a child's literacy preparedness from birth to 5 years before they reach school. There is much to be noted in that report that Banyule Council can do to support the initiative program that is extending from this initial report. I have a few copies here if anybody's interested to have a look. It's so well and so easily laid out and easily digestible for our community to digest. Can't recommend it enough. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor O'Kane. My item was on the Banyule think tank. On Saturday last week, it was my absolute honour and privilege, along with my colleague councillors, Castaldo, Garotti, Curry, Champion and De Pasquale, this Chief Executive Officer, council staff, to spend time with the Banyule think tank, a group of 55 residents who have been working together since July this year. The group Together, this group randomly selected residents have deliberated over 4 full-day think tank sessions, carefully and collaboratively crafting a revised community vision to guide council's work over the next 4 years. So just to be really quick, session 1 was about an understanding of their purpose and the group's remit. Session 2, the group received more information about council's work, and then they drafted some priorities and principles. They learned about things like council's role and the challenges of council. Session 3 was about refining priorities that resulted from session 2, and they did a deep dive to find emerging priorities, and they considered what else should be included. And session 4, over the weekend that just passed, they presented a finalised vision of themes and descriptions, as well as related priorities and outcomes. It was just such a lovely experience as a councillor to be there. They were a credible representation of our beautiful community. The group was very diverse, not only in background, but also they had diverse opinions, and they had all that passion and energy come together to make some decisions, even though they didn't fully agree, but they had to uphold, which is good democracy. I just wanted to thank all the participants for their unwavering commitment and energy. And this think tank will help us with our council plan, municipal public health and wellbeing plan, our asset plan and financial plan and budget. So all these important documents will be considered by council early in the new year before being released to the entire community for feedback. In mid-2025, council will then consider all feedback before adopting them and continuing the important work of council. So thank you for listening to that. And we have 2 more speakers. Did you want to follow on, Councillor Grotti?
I'll be brief. I just wanted, because I think this is our last meeting before Christmas, and just following on from Councillor McKern, just wanted to take this opportunity to wish everyone here a very Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year, and everyone listening at home as well, wishing you a great Christmas and New Year. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Garotti, and we'll end with the Deputy Mayor's report.
I've just got a short one. On the 3rd of December, we celebrated International Day of People with Disability, which is a joint effort between government, schools, organisations and community groups and businesses and individuals. Council has taken part for over 20 years, and many people with experiencing disability were able to participate in both art and silent disco, but not just them, but also their families, those that care for them, that have many tasks on them that they have for life. Disability touches our lives in different ways, whether it's family or friends. It all comes to us in our journey on this planet. So I just want to acknowledge all the people in our community that are in that community, and we will continue to celebrate and look for opportunities for you.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. We now move to public questions. We have received 2 public questions, and if any members of the public are in the gallery who have a public question, they are welcome to approach the lectern and ask their question when their name is read out, and if they could stick to asking their question. For those who have a public question but are not present, it won't be read out. However, it will be in our minutes and on our website. So we'll move straight to the questions. So the first question is from Pippa Griffith from Ivanhoe East. If you'd like to ask your question, Pippa.
Thank you again. The Housing and Neighbourhood Character Strategies were approved in August of this year, and both strategies refer to and are also significant components of the Residential Development Framework. Can Council please advise when the third major component of that framework, the Banyule Medium and High Density Built Form and Landscape Design Guide will be coming out for community consultation, as stated by the Director of City Development at the meeting of 8th of April 2024.
Thank you for the question. There'll be a response.
Thank you. And through you, Mayor. The draft Banyule Design Guide, shorten the title a little bit, is currently being internally tested against live planning applications. This is about a 6-month process that started in September and will continue through to March to ensure testing and refinement against a range of housing typologies. At the completion of this period, any recommended refinements will be done and the updated draft will be presented to Council for endorsement for community feedback. This is anticipated to be around May 2025.
Thank you.
Thank you, Pippa. Our next question is from Roger Fife, Ivanhoe. Thank you, Roger.
Thank you, Mayor. My question relates to road traffic counts, specifically in the Waterdale Road section between Lower Heidelberg Road and Upper Heidelberg Road, and the adjoining local roads that traffic is forced to use to cross from those two major roads. And my question is, what traffic counts post-COVID-19 restrictions have been conducted on each of these roads, including Upper Heidelberg Road through the shopping strip at Ivanhoe? Please include details of actual vehicle counts.
Thank you, Roger. And Director Swan.
Thank you, and through you, Mayor. Council's not undertaken any traffic counts in this area since the closure of Waterdale Road, south of Heidelberg Road. However, we have reviewed the traffic data available from the traffic signal loops for both Seddon Street, Upper Heidelberg Road and Kiernan Avenue, and all roads are within acceptable volume limits.
No details.
Thank you, Roger. We can speak to you after the meeting. Thank you. Given that this is the last council meeting, as mentioned by Councillor Grotti, of 2024, on behalf of my councillor colleagues and council staff, we would like to thank you all for your participation in the 2024 council meetings. We wish you a safe and happy festive season, and we look forward to seeing you again in 2025. So thank you for staying awake. There's no confidential meeting tonight, so I now close the meeting at 10:06 p.m. Thank you so much for your attendance.